right, Jess, this is for you. There's a hole in the bucket. Dear Liza, there's a hole in the bucket. Dear Liza, a hole. Then fix it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then fix it, dear Henry, fix it. With what shall I fix it, dear Liza, with what shall I fix it, dear Liza, with what? With some straw, dear Henry, with straw, dear Henry, with straw. The straw is too long, dear Liza, the straw is too long, dear Liza, too long. Then cut it, dear Henry, then cut it, dear Henry, cut it. With what shall I cut it, dear Liza, with what shall I cut it, dear Liza, with what? With a knife, dear Henry, with a knife, dear Henry, with a knife. The knife is too dull, dear Liza, the knife is too dull, dear Liza, too dull. Then sharpen it, dear Henry, then sharpen it, dear Henry, sharpen it. With what shall I sharpen it, dear Liza, with what shall I sharpen it, dear Liza, with what? With a stone, dear Henry, with a stone, dear Henry, with a stone. The stone is too dry, dear Liza, the straw is too dry, dear Liza, too dry. Then wet it, dear Henry, then wet it, dear Henry, wet it. With what shall I wet it, dear Liza, with what shall I wet it, dear Liza, with what? With some water, dear Henry, with some water, dear Henry, some water. With what shall I fetch it, dear Liza, with what shall I fetch it, dear Liza, with what? With a bucket, dear Henry, with a bucket, dear Henry, a bucket. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, there's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, a hole.